If you're about to apply for your Alabama Notary Commission for the first time, or if you're about to renew your commission for the next term, I have a question for you. Can you be an unbiased witness? Can you be an unbiased witness? Especially when someone here in Alabama hands you a document and asks you to notarize their signature when you don't agree with what's on that document or you don't agree with the person or persons standing in front of you. Being an unbiased witness is such a big and important part of our role as commissioned notaries. And I feel that that doesn't get talked about enough. Here's why I'm bringing it up. Ignore the two men standing in front of the courthouse for a moment. Instead, I want to draw your attention to the woman in the red blouse. She used to be a court clerk in Kentucky. I believe it's the county of Rowan. And unfortunately for her, and unfortunately for a same-sex couple, back in 2015, I believe, she refused to issue a marriage license to the same-sex couple, even when a court order was issued telling her that she needed to issue that license. Unfortunately, Miss Kim Davis, I believe is her name, yes, was unable to be an unbiased witness. Now, granted, she was not your traditional commissioned notary, but as a clerk, she had some notarial responsibilities. And one of her other responsibilities was to issue marriage licenses. For reasons we don't need to get into right now, she refused. And last week, 10 years later, the United States Supreme Court refused to hear her appeal, her objections, her petitions. And so now she is faced with the consequences. Now, the two gentlemen, unrelated to Miss Davis' situation at all, but they ran into a similar issue with a owner of a bakery, I believe in the state of Tennessee, who said the owner, she refused to bake a wedding cake for the two gentlemen's wedding. She was fine at first when the communication was either by phone or email, but once the two gentlemen went to the bakery to finalize the plans, she refused to accommodate their request. They won a lawsuit against her, and the last I read, her business allegedly was closed. So, what does this have to do with us Alabama notaries? Well, I am in the middle of updating the training that I offer on the Alabama marriage certificate. And I remember when the law first changed, the marriage law in 2019, a handful of notaries spoke with me privately and told me that they were either not going to continue being notaries or they were going to refuse notarizing the Alabama marriage certificate altogether because they had personal issues with same-sex couples. And so I just want to use this opportunity to say to you, last week, the U.S. Supreme Court spoke without speaking. And I want to remind notaries, Alabama notaries, that by being commissioned, we took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the state of Alabama and the United States of America. And that could mean there are times when you may not agree with something that is law. Miss Davis in the red blouse. According to last week's Newsweek article, news article, November 11th, 2025, right now she is facing $360,000 in the award that was levied against her. So you're looking at damages, a judgment, because of her actions. And again, I don't know the judgment amount of the baker, but it was a considerable amount of money. And Ms. Davis, from what I understand, the judgment is for her and her alone. She is personally responsible for that. So, Alabama notaries, we're unbiased witnesses. We need to uphold the laws. And if we have issues with doing that, we need to consult with a lawyer, get legal advice on what we should or should not do. Our errors and omission insurance, I'm now speaking as someone who sells these policies, especially for notaries. I believe this would fall under the exclusion policy. You know, I don't pay claims, so I can't say for sure, but there is an exclusion section of the policy, and I believe once we stop following law, the policy, the insurance company could very easily say, you know what, you're on your own. Please keep that in mind. Again, adhere to the laws. Make sure at all times, regardless who you are notarizing for, that's taking the high road, that's being wise, that's honoring the office that we hold as commission notaries. If I'll put in the description below a link to the article that I'm referencing last week's action or inaction by the U.S. Supreme Court. And again, we're all entitled to our feelings, our personal beliefs, but for those of us who agree to take on this very public role, we have an obligation to do that and to be recognized and be respectful of all of the citizens of the state of Alabama and the laws, um, state and federal. I look forward to hearing your questions and comments about this. And if you haven't gone through the Alabama marriage certificate training, it's not required, but it sure makes notarizing that very important form all the more easier. Especially if you are marrying a minor, you know that there should be additional um, notarizations performed for that. But I look forward to speaking with you again, and I'll see you in the next video.